Hello everyone, this is me, Joey. Just kind of wanted to give all you guys an update as to Villainy Vault. Now, if you guys don't remember, I posted a video at the end of the year talking about Villainy Vault, what I'm doing with it, as a quick little side bit, because at that time I was talking about YouTube, talking about what's happening with Kappa, and talking about what I'm going to do with the content and all that. So, if you guys don't know, I talked about that, so if you guys want to go check that out, I have a link in the description about that video. But I wanted to talk about what I have planned for Villainy Vault. I wanted to go and diverge into what it is, how I'm going to structure Villainy Vault, and how I'm going to make the videos, and then I'm going to talk about artists and editors and Patreon, because I wanted to kind of talk about that because I have a really cool thing I want to do with artists. So, Villainy Vault is a series where I talk about villains, and it is a series where I dive into villains from many different sources of media, like television, movies, etc. And I also talk about, bosses and all that. And what I have planned for that is, just the character analysis videos, commentaries where I could talk about a specific group of villains, and why they work and these don't, or kind of talk about these characters and compare which was better. Like, as I said before, I plan to make a video about Shatter and Dropkick from the Bumblebee movie, and talk about why people prefer those characters over Michael Bay's depictions of those Decepticons, and talk about why about that. Other than just going, oh, well, that's bad because they look like trash, and they're just boring, and these ones are more interesting, and they look cooler. I wanted to kind of do more than just, oh, they're good, that's bad. I wanted to kind of go further in depth as to why those characters are more liked and tolerable than Michael Bay's depictions. So I wanted to do that, and then top 10s, of course, I'm going to be making as well. So for those of you who probably are curious about how I'm going to structure them, Villainy Vault, I'm just going to make videos whenever I have the time to. Not saying that I never will, but Villainy Vault is it's a commentary. It's like a character analysis show. So I'm going to have to be watching a movie or episodes a lot, and to take notes off of what I've seen, how these characters act, and all that. So I have all that listed, all that taken down, so I know what to talk about, and to stay on track with those characters. And with Villainy Vault in that specific sense, that's going to take a lot of time, if you know what I mean, because, one, I have to, again, watch that, specific movie or TV show, or heck, even watch like a walkthrough of a game if I don't own the game, multiple times, so I can get an understanding as to who that character is. Because if I just watch it once, then that's really bad. That's really bad, because that's just, okay, that's it, I'm done. You need to watch it multiple times to understand something. It's like what people do when they're reviewing something. Sometimes you'll have a I saw it once and that's it review, or you'll just have a guy who watched it multiple times to talk about what he saw, whether it be good or bad. So I kind of wanted to do that with Villainy Vault. It's where I talk about the character that I've seen multiple times, on one sit through. So that's what I'm going to be doing with that. And what I have planned for that is the videos are going to start with me talking, just saying, hi, here, insert name here, insert character name here, transition to the intro, and then transition to the character. And I was going to talk about those videos and how I'm going to structure them. So the videos I'm going to have structured are going to be like I start off the video by explaining the character I'm talking about. Then I diverge into how that character was created. Now you're going to be wondering, okay, well, how about story? I mean, like, creation is in the producers of a show, or the artists of the show, or whatever. How did they create this character? What inspirations from media did they take to make that character? And all that kind of stuff. So say, for example, I could talk about how, okay, so George Lucas took these ideas to make Vader, and I would talk about how he came up with the design of Vader, how he came up with the, why he picked James Earl Jones to be the voice of Vader, and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is what I'm going to do first. Then I'm going to transition to the character origin, which will obviously be okay. So this is how this character became this character. Where do they come from? Who are they? All that kind of stuff. Then I talk about their stories. And then I talk about how they are in the story. What do they do in the world of said universe? So, say for example, I talk about here's Megatron. So he is the leader of an evil faction of robots called Decepticons, and he wants to take control of Cybertron and all that kind of stuff. Like that would be what they do in the story, and I would talk about the relevance in the story. Then I would diverge into their design, which would then be where I would have the artist I would commission for the video, and I would showcase the character design. I'll talk about all the specific details about them. So, like, say for example, I bring up how you'll notice that this character has a scar, and this side of the character doesn't. So, like, say for example, this side has a scar, this one doesn't, and I would diverge into more of the design and talk about, okay, so if you look at this, you can see how this part of the character design was inspired by Chinese folklore. Or okay, so if you look at this, you'll see this character is based off of a a yokai, which is like, say, like a Japanese or Chinese spirit. I talk about how that benefits the design of that character and why that fits for that character design, and I talk more exclusively into it. So that's what I have planned for those moments of the art. So I showcase the artists I commissioned, and the artwork they drew. I showcase little details about it that you probably didn't pick up from just seeing the character in the first place. So I can talk about all those interesting details about what inspired that character and how that inspiration translated into their design. Then I talk about their personality. So say, okay, this is this character. Who are they and all that? So they say, for example, let's talk about like Spinell from Steven Universe, the movie. I would talk about, okay, so she is essentially this character that is, again, kind of crazy. She's heartbroken because of, I'm not going to spoil it because of something that happened in the movie. And she is seeking revenge. So she's a vengeful character. She's a sympathetic villain because that's how they depict her in the movie. She is this playful character that, again, became a villain because of an event that happened. So we get to see what she was before, all that kind of stuff. That's what I do for personality, is I talk about, again, the personality and how that benefits their character and if it doesn't benefit them. So I talk about, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense with this character because this is how the story is trying to portray them, but yet they act this way, which is contradictory to what the story is trying to develop and show this character as. So it's, contradictory. So that's what I was going to do with that. Then I was going to translate into their, the type of villain. So I was going to talk about, okay, so this type of villain is what we would call a final villain, or like the big bad, like the true big bad of a series. So say, for example, we would say Aku or Bill Cipher, like Aku from Samurai Jack and Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls. Those are the true big bad. They're the villains that are the main antagonists for the final season or the final arc of a story. So that is supposed to be the main villain. This is supposed to be the villain that everyone's supposed to be afraid of. This is the true antagonist of the story. And then you could have like the same thing for movies. So say, for example, this is the true villain of the movie. The movie was making you think it was this character, but it was really this character that was the villain. That kind of stuff to kind of, lead you in one way like that. So say, for example, so Star Wars, the true villain would be, like, bring up Episode 9, that would be the Emperor. But the main villain would be Kylo Ren. So Kylo Ren is like the main villain, but Emperor Palpatine would be the true villain. He's the source of all the evil that's happening in the world. He is the real villain. That would be, what I mean by that's the category of a true main antagonist. That's the true big bad. Then I would talk about, okay, this is a psychopath villain. This is the unhinged villain. This is all these other types of villains. This is a sympathetic villain. All that would be translated into the type of villain. Then I would talk about their legacy. And what I mean by legacy would be, how did this character, stay in their memorability? So it'd be memorability / influence in pop culture. So I was gonna do like talk about, okay, this character, I think they're really cool. I think that, a lot of people can look at this character and remember them a lot. And then I would then do the, you know, what they had as influence, like their impact in our culture. Like, say for example, okay, Bowser. He's like one of the most famous Nintendo icons ever as a villain. We know Mario. He's the plumber that fights this turtle dragon. So Bowser is very popular. I mean, you can talk about how Bowser influenced these characters and how they became after Bowser, and then how Bowser impacted, video game villains in general. That kind of stuff is what I had planned for that part of the video. So, say for example, same thing with Darth Vader and Megatron and all those other villains is how I talk about how they impacted culture as a whole. Then I would then end the video off by talking about the category. And I have 5 categories for those villains. I would do classic, which means like very memorable, like it's hard to forget about them. You know who that character is. Again, Megatron, Darth Vader, you know who those characters are. You know where they came from, etc. Even if you don't know everything about them, you do know who those characters are, so you can remember who they are. That is the classic. That is the classic choice I had for them. Then the other identity I would give would be underrated. Underrated would be characters that I find are really cool, but they're just not really given that spotlight. So, say for example, characters like Fawful or Dementio. They're amazing Mario villains, but Bowser, he's the most popular. He's the character that everyone remembers. He's the one that people know about instantly. Just because I know who Fawful is in Dementio doesn't mean not everyone knows about them. But the problem is that, say for example, Fawful, he's only in this line of video games that are Mario. Like, he's in the Mario and Luigi RPG games. Then you have Dementia, who's only been in Super Paper Mario thus far. So he's only been in one game. Fawful's been in a couple. Bowser's been in like almost every Mario game. Even the ones that had Dementio and Fawful, he's been in those games. So you instantly know who Bowser is, and you do have that development for him. So he's a more developed villain, but he just overshadows Fawful and Dementio in terms of popularity. So that's the kind of thing I feel about when that kind of distinguishes it. Fans instantly know who Fawful and Dementio are, but people who are outside the fandom won't know who those characters are, so therefore they're going to be asking, who's Dementio? Who's this character talking about? I don't know who that is. So that kind of translates to the underrated. Then newcomer would be a character I feel is from a brand new series that like has ended or concluded, that I feel personally is a really well done, well developed, fleshed out antagonist that I could see one day, like give them like a new decade or so, they'll be instantly remembered or put into that classic category of being really popular characters. So that's kind of what I thought of the newcomer category. Now, the other category I had was kind of tough to name. I was thinking of calling it the disappointing category, but I decided to go with wasted potential. And the reason why I'm calling it wasted potential is it's if a character I find had a lot of development, some really cool ideas, interesting concepts that could have made them really well done and fleshed out villains, but how the story went, how the creators of this movie decided to take them, I feel really hampered them and made them very weak. They made them weaker characters because of the decisions they make. When it was going one way, they were going really good, but then a whole nosedive into a garbage fire. That's how I kind of see it. So that would be, in my opinion, again, to bring up Star Wars, that would be the First Order. That would be, like Kylo Ren, Snoke, those villains. Then I would talk about, like, other characters that I found were really boring, really bland. Like, same, thing where, with Dom Bellwether from Zootopia and Hans, they were, the twist villains, but I didn't think the twist really built up to them being good characters. It just kind of came out of nowhere for Hans, and then Dawn, it kind of didn't really work so well because we kind of knew who that character was, and we kind of saw that twist coming of them being the villain. So it didn't really work because with the twist villain, you need to develop that twist. Like, say for King Candy, that worked because they developed both sides. Could he not be Turbo, or could he be Turbo? That was the twist. Not, oh, are they the villain or not? It's clear that he's an antagonist, but we don't know he was Turbo. That's the twist with King Candy. There's more to it than just, oh, they're evil. That's the twist that works for those characters. So that's why I feel those characters would be wasted potential. When the idea works, the concept works, and they're building it to a really good idea and a point, but they fail on it. And what separates a character from being wasted potential is simple. For me, Phantasma is not a waste of potential. He's a really cool Mario villain, but what is the problem is he's overshadowed by Bowser. That was a decision made on the game, that Phantasma wasn't going to be the final villain, it was going to be Bowser. That to me doesn't make him waste potential because, they didn't ruin his character. They didn't, okay, so he's this, and then they build him up, and then they say, oh, this is really why he's doing this. So it kind of ruins his impact. To me, underrated is just when that villain is overshadowed. I'd say that the unpopular choice would be to make Bowser the final antagonist of the game he came from, Dream Team. Which, again, given how the game was structured, it seemed like Phantasma was going to be the final villain, but they replaced him with Bowser. That, to me, isn't wasted potential. Wasted potential is when the creators develop the villain, and the development of the villain falls apart. Where this character does this, but it makes no sense, and into the structure of the story and the character thus far, so it kind of comes out of nowhere and makes them, again, inconsistent. And, again, contradictory to who they were. That's what I find to be wasted potential. And then the final category would be forgettable, or I would call, a failure, or the, just disappointing. That full-on forgettable, horrible, horrendous category where you get a villain who's so bland, so unoriginal, so inconsequential to the story they come from, you barely can remember them. That is a villain I find to be in the, disgrace, or like the failure category. That's what I'm going to call it, the disgrace category, is where they had no impact. Nothing they did mattered in the story. You could have taken that villain out and the story would have been the same. That is a disgrace of a villain, where you could have had something good, like waste potential, but at least with waste potential, that's where they tried. Disgrace is where no one tried. No one tried to make this villain interesting. No one tried to put any effort to make this character interesting. That is disgraceful. And that is how those videos are going to be structured. That's my roadmap for how I get to point A to point B in the video. Now, I wanted to also talk about the art. Now, as I said, I'm going to have artists and editors. Now, I am currently working on getting a PayPal. I have a lot of money saved up for this show that I've been putting aside for it, which has been really good. But I would want to get a Patreon. But the problem is I don't think I have enough, of a follow-up. You know what I mean? I don't really have as much attention or noticeability as people like, say, Saberspark, or, any other creator that you find out there that has a Patreon. All of them are people that have a massive following. I don't have a massive following, so I think I need to wait till I get to a certain point to then make a Patreon. So I think maybe if it gets to 5K or 10K, I'll make a Patreon. That, I think, makes sense, because at this current point, I only have, I think, 2.5K, that, like 250,000, or, just 2,500 subscribers, so I don't really have a lot of, followers, which is not bad. I'm glad that all these people have been watching me and have enjoyed my content, but I feel that in order to make a Patreon, I need to first think of my rewards, how I'm going to give them out to people, how I'm going to make them, fair without making them seem like scams. Like, okay, so say this tier, you get your name listed in the video. If you get to this tier, I say your name and I link you and all that kind of stuff. That I think I need to develop further. And that I really need to focus on for the Patreon. And as I said, I'm already working on my PayPal. So with Patreon, I need to actually come up with the reward tiers and to think of a better time when I should make that when I should make a Patreon for the channel. Like when would be a good time to make it. And for my artists, I have contacted a couple of artists, but I wanted to make this video so some artists kind of know what this will be like. So I'm going to pay an artist real world money, not like, oh, hey, I'm just going to pay you so, like, in exposure. So I just, you make artwork, I'll put it in a video, and therefore you get, some attention. No. I don't like that. I do not like that one bit. If you have an artist for your video, you should absolutely pay them in money. If they have no means of payment, like they don't have a PayPal, it's better off just to wait till they have one to support them that way. Because the problem is, artists have so much time on their hands. And that's something I think a lot of people need to understand. You're not the only person that's paying this artist. There's many other people that could be paying this artist to be making content for you, to be making artwork for you. There's a reason why, like, people, when you look at, like, Brandon's Henold and his, Brandon's cult movie reviews, he has different artists doing those videos and doing, like, the title, like, the title card for those videos. Because if he just had one artist, he'd have to wait till that artist would be available, and then he would have to wait, to pay them and all that kind of stuff. So if one artist is sick, if one artist is, away on a vacation or something, he has a backup artist to do that for him, and he still pays them in money, not exposure. I get annoyed when people confuse exposure with payment. That's not payment. Artists, as I said, put so much time into that. And as I said, you're not the only person. There could be a random stranger just commissioning this artist to make something for them. So you have to be patient in order to do that. And even if they're backed up, you just wait. As I said, I've contacted other artists. I don't contact one artist and say, hey, are you available for a video? Yeah, I got one artist. No, I contacted multiple artists to see if they are interested. So if one is sick, one is on, vacation or just wants to take a break from art, and just wants to relax, that is what I'm doing. That is what I'm doing with them. If they want to take a break, they can. And I'll have another artist to do it for me as, a substitute. But what I have in terms of what I want to do for my content is I'll have the artwork be for the thumbnail. And then I'll have, I'm going to commission another artist to make the logo for Villainy Vault. And I'll probably, Photoshop it to where I have the artwork and then the logo and the name of the episode that I'm doing, Villainy Vault episode 1, or just Villainy Vault, say, Soundwave from Transformers Prime or something like that. Or I could do a video about Thanos, Thanos from the MCU, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm gonna do. And then some artists, I'm not gonna pay to make a certain character. Say, okay, just some random guy in a tux. Nothing about them is different than this other villain in a tux. I just probably show it something else. Or just try to think of how I'm gonna to pick that character if all they are is just a guy wearing a tux. That kind of stuff. But if there's a lot of changes to them that make them distinct, then I'm gonna, pay that artist to then make artwork of that character. So say, for example, I want to talk about Catra from She-Ra Princess of Power. Well, I have to wait till that show is concluded. And the reason why is because with shows like that, where there's really good characters, I feel I need to wait till that show has concluded. Not a season, not just the franchise as a whole. I mean as in the show itself, where there's no comics coming out, and if I find out the comics are a separate canon, that is when I'll make a separate video for that. Say, for example, My Little Pony. They have a comic line that is a separate canon to the show. Like, where the comics take episodes and continuity from the show, but the show doesn't take anything from the comics except for when they make a comic line exclusively for the show, or like a prequel to the show or movie. That, I feel, is like part of that character. But if it's like, from the comic continuity, or like, I guess, like what people call the CC, that I think could be put into a different video as a whole. And that's really what I kind of want to do. So if the show is concluded, I'm going to talk about that character. Say, for example, Queen Chrysalis from the My Little Pony show. I could talk about her as long as I find out that she's not coming back in, like, season 10 comic. And if she is, then I could probably make, like, a short little video talking about how I feel they depicted her in that comic. So that's what I'm really planning to do with that, is just to, talk about a villain that has been in a property that's already been released and concluded and finished. But if they're from a property that is still happening, I'm going to wait till that has subsided and concluded and the story is over to then talk about that character. Because even if, like, say, for example, the character is dead in another, like, another franchise or so, that wouldn't really be smart of me, because that character could still have an impact on the story, whether, an action they did translates later on to an arc of a story. Like, say, for example, Steven Universe has moments like where they introduced Aquamarine and Topaz from a moment from Steven just talking to a character, and then they come in because of that moment. That was impacted by another character. Another villain has translated into their introduction and that part of the story. So that's why I feel I need to wait on when a show has subsided and concluded to then talk about that. And as I stated, I plan to have a wheel where I have, TV show, like commentary, analysis, top 10, all that. And then if I land on a certain one, it'll talk about, top 10 best, top 10 worst, all that kind of stuff. And then it lands on that, and then I'll talk about, the category or topic that it had landed on. And I'm not going to have it, be, it lands on commentary, and then spin, let's see where it lands on. It lands on this. I'm just going to have it in the background as I, say thank you all for everyone who watched this video. Thank you for, just putting your time and just checking it out. If you like it, please share with amongst your friends and check, hopefully they might like it and check out my channel. That kind of stuff, and I'll just have it, in the background for you people to see. And I'm going to introduce it maybe 5 episodes in. Like, if I make, some top 10s, a commentary, and a character analysis video, I'll introduce the wheel. I'm not going to introduce on the first video because I want to have more ideas to put into the wheel, and that kind of leads into what I was going to do next. So if you're an artist that is interested in working for this, channel and making artwork for my videos, I have a Twitter, and I have it in the description, at Soundwave Z, like just 3 Z's. If you guys want to go check me out there, you can. My DMs are open, so if you want to message me and ask me further questions about the show, and just, if you're a viewer who wants to ask for a villain recommendation, or just a topic you want to be talk about, like a top 10 or anything, just message me and I'll put that in my, my notes, so I can put that in the wheel for future videos. So that is going to be what that's going to be for the Twitter. And also, if you're an editor who wants to, I'm going to need a job for videos. Oh, this guy is open for a video. Let me know, and we can talk about that. So I'm going to be editing the videos till I can get an editor. That's how it's going to go down. And another thing I want to bring up, too, is essentially Vlare. I'm going to be uploading my videos to Vlare as well. I also have the link to Vlare in the description below. So I'm going to be posting both them on Vlare and on to YouTube. So, again, I have Vlare and YouTube. And I said this before, Vlare is not going to be a website where I'm just going to post videos there and that's it. Vlare is just going to be, my secondary YouTube. If YouTube implodes, I'm going to have Vlare as my alternate source of making content. That is what it's going to be for. Then, as I have stated, with all of that information, I have some videos planned. So basically, I plan to do like some top 10 videos on like some decades. I'm not really planning on doing like like top 10 villains of 2010 and all that. I plan to make videos like top 10 villains of like 2010 to 2015 and then 2016 2019 kind of lists, and then like kind of divulge into those like some top 10 worst villain songs. I was actually going to do a worst because no one really does a top 10 worst villain song list, so I wanted to do that. And then I wanted to do like forgotten songs, like villain songs that not really a lot of people know about, but maybe might know somewhere on YouTube, that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to do like top 10 boss themes of the decade or whatever. That kind of stuff that I can then do for top 10s, and then like top 10, best and worst movies, not for Villainy Vault, but just best and worst movies of this year and so. And then I wanted to do the Shatter and Dropkick commentary, but I also wanted to do a commentary about twist villains. And I was going to do a commentary about why do people not like twist villains. I was going to do that, and then for the videos, I think for the characters, I'm going to do Phantasma, Tarn from the Transformer comics. I was also going to do a video about the characters for the Rise of Skywalker commentary that's coming out about the First Order. So that's going to be part of the Rise of Skywalker commentary about characters. That'll be the second part of that whole video. And then I was thinking of talking about My Little Pony villains. I was thinking of talking about like King Sombra, and list goes on and on about some villains. As I said, these videos I have planned are just in like the kind of development stages. I'm currently working on the Rise of Skywalker video because that's something I'm really wanting to make, because I kind of want to just put my own thoughts and feelings out there of how I felt about the movie, and to kind of diverge into the differences of to diverge into the film, the characters, Disney and their controversy, and then the fan base and the critical controversy. All that kind of stuff. I want to diverge and look at both sides of the same coin. I wanted to do that for those videos. But for this, Villainy Vault, as I said, I'm working on this. I really wanted to make this thing a thing, because I really enjoy villains, and I want to make a series about villains. So if you want to, as I said, recommend me any villain, that would be awesome. Because as I said, I have a couple of villains in the works. As I said, Phantasma, Tarn, King Deity, King Sombra, all these other characters I have planned are going to be for Villainy Vault, and I am very excited to share that with all of you. So, as I said, I hope you all have a great day and a great time. And as I said, if you guys want to message me, if you are an artist, an editor, and you want to support the channel and the videos by contributing art that I can pay you for, and then in editing so I can pay you for that, let me know and message me on Twitter so I can talk with you about that. And then if you guys, as I said, have any requests, you can leave a comment below or go to my Twitter and message me. And as I said, I have also a Vlare, so if you want to check me out there, you can. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.